We've all had that moment where we thought something was going to turn out perfect, but it didn't. It has a lot to do with your expectations. On today's show, we're going to talk about the difference between reality and your expectations. Let's do it. Your mind is a beautiful thing, but if left unattended, it can get ugly real quick. If you're not constantly curating the content your mind consumes on a daily basis, then your surroundings will dictate your daily thoughts, habits, behaviors, and actions. This show has only one goal: to leave your mind more beautiful than it was when you arrived. Welcome to the Beautiful Mind Show. Welcome to today's show. I am Jason Everett, here to help you figure out, how do you not let yourself down when you have crazy expectations? How do you not beat yourself up? How do you make sure that every single day you show up in the best possible way without disappointing yourself? And today's guest, you are going to freaking love. He's a good friend of mine. I wish we could hang out more, but you know, pandemic or something. Please welcome to the show, Jesse Ecker. What up, Jesse?
What's going on? What's up, brother? How you doing? Thank you for having me.
Yeah, dude, so good to have you on. Jesse is from Build Your Brand Online, or excuse me, just buildyourbrand.com. Not online, but Build Your Brand. And you know that, right? We're talking, Jesse. Buildyourbrand.com is the website, right?
Build Your Brand Online. You're good with the online.
I did get it right. Okay, so Build Your Brand Online, which, and again, I get it wrong because this is a new brand, right? Like, you're in full startup mode on this new thing. It's not like you've been running it for like 80 years and this is a new thing, but you come from running a very large brand. I think you said like the brand was like a $10 million plus brand, like this very large brand. You're now in startup mode on this new thing. And you've had to just deal with some really interesting things about kind of like going back into startup mode has been a totally different experience. And so you kind of had to like rebuild and reassess like how you're doing it. And I think we've all been there. We've all had to rebuild somewhere in our life. If you have, do me a favor and comment rebuild. But Jesse, that's where you're at now, is you're building a whole new thing, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's really interesting because, you know, obviously, so like you mentioned, I ran Harvecker online, and I did that for 10 years, and I still do manage that. But, you know, over the span, we've done over 40 mil in product sales. And so doing a new brand to just like go, you've learned so much and you've had this high level of success for such a long time. You know, I've been running this multi-million-dollar brand for 8 years, right? So starting again from nothing, I like forget what that feels like. I forget what it's like to recreate all these things from scratch. Even my own brand, which I have no brand equity, I've always been the person behind the scenes. So now it's like, I have to build an audience. I have to actually build authority with this audience. I have to get social proof. And it's like, you know, I'm starting from square one, and it's a mind frick, that's for sure. But
yeah, it's awesome. Dude. And you guys might have heard of this little brand called Harvecker / Millionaire Mind / Millionaire Mind Intensive. Just a small brand that's touched tens of thousands of people all over the world. Just a small brand. And Jesse's been behind the scenes growing this brand with Harv, who's obviously his dad, and been growing the brand and been doing some incredible things. And that's how we've been connected. And now we do a bunch of stuff together. And I think it's really interesting because, and by the way, if you've ever done any Harv's events, do me a favor and say Harv in the chat, or say Millionaire Mind. If you've heard of any of that stuff, type it in the chat. I'd love to know, because it's really amazing tools. And I think here's the thing, Jesse, is like, I think what can happen in life is we have success in an area, right? We have success in an area, maybe really, some people have it really young. Some people like have a breakout success, and then they try and reinvent themselves. So they go and do something. What are some of the things you've had to face now reinventing this, you know, and like doing a totally different brand? And to your point, this like brand equity that you've had to build up and do this. What are some of the struggles you've personally had to deal with, you've had to work to overcome as you're building up this new brand?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing that I'm constantly facing right now is not anything new to an entrepreneur, is the roller coaster of emotions and results, right? And so it happens every day, no matter what, no matter if you're a startup, seasoned, or whatever it is, you go through these different emotions all the time, but they're just more prevalent and more often that I deal with, right? So when we start like doing something, it's like there's so many nuances of building something new. and there's so many different places that you can optimize. And it's like when we have these, like for me, my goal was to collect $1 million cash first year in the business,
Yeah.
right? And
Because
that
it's a
was like,
good goal. If
yeah,
anybody wants $1 million your first year in business, put $1 million in there. I'd say that's a nice goal to have, Jesse. I mean, $1 million your first year, sure.
yeah, it was my nice goal, right? And for
Yeah.
me, like it was like a no-brainer. Like this would be like ridiculous if I can't do it, right? Because it's just like my money structure and the way that I've been operating is such a high level of getting this money like coming in on a value standpoint on an ongoing basis for so long. So I'm like,
You're used to seeing it. It's normal.
it's normal. It's a normal thing. So for me to do that, so after our first few times we went and did the offer, I'm like, we're off track. Like, what is going on? Like, are we going to make this? Like, is this business even worth it anymore? Should I be doing this? Like, and it's the normal chatter of, I'm not good enough. Maybe I shouldn't be doing this. Maybe I should stick behind Harv. Like, what are you thinking about doing? And I'm only now, 6 months into it, now going to the 7th month. But it's just a constant thing of this expectation of what I think I should be, but where I'm actually at right now. And I have to continuously close that gap, right? Of, this is this false belief of this ego that I want to be in, right? But where I'm really at is where I'm at. And the circumstance that I've created is the circumstance, and the story and the thoughts I put around it is what either has me emotionally feeling good or emotionally, feeling beat up or disappointed. So it's a constant game, right? It's a constant game to play. And what I would say to your audience is, no matter where you're at, like, it's the game that you're playing for the rest of your life, right?
Right.
And just
don't play it for today, like play it forever.
Yeah, sometimes it's going to be expansive and much bigger than other times when you're like more comfortable. But like, I came back and went out of my comfort zone big time here to start something new, and that's why the big growth is happening right now.
Yeah. Dude, that's so good. And I think as you talk about this, you mentioned something right before we started the show about goals, and you have a totally different definition of goals, because like I was running a company, not tens and 70s and 40s of millions or whatever you'd said it was, but like I had been running a company prior to me owning this business, and I had ran it, and we were doing a couple $1 million a year. We're a couple $1 million a year, and I had this expectation, same thing. I'll do $1 million the first year, no big deal. And we were 6 months in, and I think your numbers are better than mine, but like 6 months into this business 12 years ago, I had done like a whopping $40,000. And I was like, there is no way I'm gonna hit $1 million my first year. And I had this giant reality crash, because like I was used to doing millions of dollars a year, and I'm like, I'll for sure hit $1 million this first year. And I crashed and burned super hard. And like you said, it takes this toll on your ego. It takes this toll on you, and you're like, well, maybe I shouldn't do that. And you start self-doubt, and all that stuff creeps in. But you said something really interesting about goals. I'd love for you to share with the audience. What's your definition of goals, Jesse?
Yeah, so I think most people get goals extremely mixed up, and goals are amazing to have as far as like a target and where you want to go. But what it does is we have these beliefs, and we've been programmed that if you don't hit your goal, you fail, right?
Right. You're trash. You're garbage.
You didn't do well, right? And to me, that's not what a goal is meant to be, right? When we look at the actual formula, a lot of people know what this is, it's the be, do, have formula, right? And so first you got to be the person to do the actions you need to take to have the results you want, right?
Yeah.
And so the have is the lag result of the goal, right? You're going to have this result. And so when I look at goals, I look at creating this target of something that I'm currently not being.
Yeah.
And so what I need to do then is I need to change who I become or who I am right now, who's actually going to achieve that. So like for me, if I make a goal of $1 million and I'm at zero right now, I need to be the CEO who's going to make $1 million that first year. Or even when I was in my other company, it was, I want to do $10 million. And then I look at what am I currently being and doing right now? And who do I need to become to be that person who will actually achieve the $10 million? So it's not necessarily, it's a target for me. It's not a definition of fail or not fail. It's a growth opportunity for you to become the person that you're currently not, that's getting the results you are, because the person you are right now, the being, is getting the results that you're getting. And so if you want to get different
that is
results,
your being.
you have to change your being in some sort of way, which will change your doing, which will then change your results.
I think that's so good. By the way, if that's helpful for you, do me a favor and say helpful in the chat, and somebody type in for me, be do have. I'd love to see that up in the chat too, just as a reminder. But I think, to your point, I think people talk about the be and they're like, well, if I'm this person today, I can just be that person tomorrow and then magically everything change. And I think what you said is like that being, you have to like evolve that being. That being needs to happen over a sustained period of time in order to generate those results. So if you say, hey, I want to do $1 million my first year, or I want to get in this type of shape, or I want to do whatever, you have to do the being part. Like the being part's got to become you for a while. The doing needs to happen, and then you can have that result that you're after. And so often, I think people get trapped in that. And I love what you said, because sometimes I'll here's how I look at goals, Jesse, in my mind, is like I'll set a goal and I'm like, okay, here's how much I want to hit this quarter, or here's how much I want to do, or here's the weight I want to be. I set that goal, and it's hard for me to say, I want to achieve that in 6 weeks, or I want to achieve that in 6 months, because if I've never done it before, I don't know how long it takes to achieve it. Right? So to your point, I set that goal until I just get to the goal. And I'm like, oh, that one took me 3 months. Oh, that one took me 6 months. Now I drive and I'll say, I want to try and hit it, or I'm going to work to achieve it. Sorry, not try, but like I want to work to achieve it inside that 3 month period of time. But if it takes me 3.5 months, then I've still achieved the goal that I was after, because I've evolved my being to hit that goal. It's like a milestone to say, how long does it take me to get there? Does that make sense?
Yeah, exactly. And I love that. It's like, and again, like people like put so much weight on these timelines that you create for yourself, right? And it's
they're
like
totally made up.
Totally made up, and we make ourselves suffer, and then we're like, we're not good enough. Why are we not doing this? Like, it's so disappointing that we can't do that when we totally made up the whole game in the first place. And remember, the main thing here that we were discussing, the main thing that we were discussing is like, you're the referee of your life. You make up the rules. You make up what works and what doesn't. So if you get that opportunity and now you're bashing yourself with the own game that you've created, well, can't you just create a new game for yourself and make it a little bit easier for yourself not to suffer, and know that, hey, you're doing the best you can and it didn't work, so correct and continue for the next time. I learned that from my dad. Correct and continue, right? That's the
correct and continue. And if you imagine this, if you're gonna like hike up a mountain and you've never hiked up a mountain before, right? And you're like, I bet I can get to the top of that mountain in 10 minutes. Watch me. And you start running, and after 10 minutes, you're like nowhere close to the top of the mountain. You're like, forget it. I'm not going to the top of this mountain. I'm over it. I said it was going to take 10 minutes. It's going to take longer. I'm done. Right. And like, that's what we do. Like, we're our own little whiny, what's like on ourselves. And I think sometimes it's like, look, okay, so it didn't take 10 minutes. So keep going until you get to the top of that mountain. And that mountain could be $100. It could be $100,000. It could be, $1 million. It could be whatever that mountain is for you that you want to get to, but you've got to keep going on that path. And when you hit that window of time, now you know better, like, well, okay, it's probably not gonna take me 10 minutes to get to the top of that mountain.
Yeah. Right? And man, like, I think one of the big things too is like, so many people are so focused on results, the result, when the result is the last thing that you get, right? And so we can't necessarily control our results, but we can control the process to and the activities that lead to some sort of result, right? And so many people an easy way to take pressure off the result is focus on what you're doing, and get and optimize what you're doing, like do better in what you're doing and master and commit and build what you're currently doing, and take the pressure off the result, because the result's naturally going to happen when you do the right activities in the right time with the right priority, right? And so if you're not focusing on the most important stuff that's actually going to get you the result, then you're going to continue to complain and whine and beat yourself up for not getting the result, when really it's not the result, it's what you did to get that result that really matters.
Yeah. So again, focus on who you need to be, focus on the doing and getting better at the doing, and then the having will come. It's kind of like you got to release yourself from the have. And I think that's the problem is, like, can I just tell you, like the world, and this is, for you guys paying attention, the world says, if you want to have it tomorrow, just buy this, right? Like we're into this shortcut land of like, all you have to do to have is this very short window. And that's not normally the truth. What else are you dealing with, Jesse, that you think would be helpful for people? And again, I actually, real quick, I want to find out from you. This. What have you learned about expectation versus reality? But I've got to take a quick break. We'll be back in 45 seconds. When we come back, let's talk about expectations versus reality, how you can help manage that, what you can do, and how you can get better at it, all after this short commercial. Would you like to have an even more beautiful mind? Well, we'd like you to have one, and we actually created a 7-day Beautiful Minds Challenge, which is a little bit of a choose your own adventure challenge for just 7 days. And I really think you can do anything for 7 days. It's definitely not easy, but it will be simple for you to get access to it. All you have to do is comment anywhere on this video or send me a message on social media that says 7-day, and I'll send you immediate access to not only our Beautiful Minds Facebook group, but also our Beautiful Minds Challenge, where you can go through 3 different areas: your mental health, your emotional health, and your physical health, and get challenges in each of those areas that'll help you get a handle on each of those areas inside your life to give you more control over what you want to do every single day. So do me a favor, comment 7-day or send me a message on any social media, and I'll make sure I give you access to our exclusive community group as well as access to the challenge. Thanks so much, and now back to the show. We're chatting with Jesse Ecker from Build Your Business Online. New brand, right? New brand after running a very large brand for years and years, started a new brand and is now dealing with all the chaos that comes with, having your expectations be this and then having some reality be less than expected. And if you've ever had, I don't know, Jesse, you don't seem like a Pinterest guy. Are you a Pinterest guy? I need to know. Okay, no. I was like, I'm going to make an analogy, and Jess is going to be like, what are you talking about? Most of you guys have heard of Pinterest fails, right? If you heard of Pinterest fails, type in Pinterest fails. But Pinterest fails, Jesse, are like, people build these really fancy things on Pinterest, and they make them look super fancy. And then the average Joe, like you and I, well, I'm average. You're exceptional. But like average Joes like me try to go build something, and then like they try and put a face on a cake, and the face like melts off, right? It's like expectations versus reality. Is they can't quite perform. And what I would say to the point of what we're talking about is that, that person who runs that Pinterest page has probably made that cake 1,000 times. It is like they're a pro at it, and you're the amateur taking your first run at it. And same thing, if you haven't built that business up before, if you've never done it, and I think this is part of it, if you've never done it before, then, how could you possibly know what it's going to take? So what other advice do you have, Jesse, about matching our expectations versus reality, not beating ourselves up, and making sure that we're kind to ourselves? What are some things that you would recommend that we pay attention to as we're building to be that person?
Yeah. So when it comes down to it, I actually saw this from someone we currently are in a group with, Brody Lee. And he said, Brody, isn't that? He says that there's a difference between expectations and standards, right? And the expectations of what we are expecting, the standards are the values that we live in for ourselves. And I thought that distinguish is amazing, right? Because expectations are these false realities of what we want. Standards are what we stand for and what we are willing to, show up for on a daily basis. And so what I can at least say for people is, if you're not hitting your expectations, that's okay. Many people don't, and you're not alone. And most people actually don't. Like, most people rarely hit their expectations because they're just overcommitting or overdoing what they think they can do. Yeah. But what you should be focused on is, are you living to your standards? Are you consistently trying to do better that day? Are you pushing yourself in different areas of life to really live into what you value most, your integrity, your family, your business, whatever that is, that standard for you? Are you meeting that standard each day? And if you're not meeting that standard each day, that's something to take note on. It's not the expectation you take note on. That's more of a trigger of, hey, I'm off track or off track. But the standard is really what you should be comparing yourself to, not comparing yourself to your expectation, which you really created that because of this belief that you're probably comparing to other people, and that other people comparison comes back to your expectation, and then you're not there, right? So
Right.
I would say that would be a really big thing that I'm working on right now as far as
It's good.
my growth is. I'm really like, I just had my second baby. So like, I'm really big into family season right
again,
now.
by the way, man. Congrats.
Yeah,
dude.
thank you. So I'm really big into family season right now, but I'm also in startup mode. So it's like, how can I just be showing up for both of these to a standard that I like, and the expectation will come, I know. And I could tell a cool story on that as well.
Yeah, dude. I'd love to know a little bit more about that, because I think that's really good. So shout out to Brody, by the way. Brody, if you happen to be watching the podcast, we gave you some love today. I was just actually chatting with Brody today. He was sending me a message, so we connect all the time. But yeah, I think to your point, I was thinking about this when I was 16 years old. I had a car, and I was like, I was trying to decide, like, it wasn't a Ferrari, but I was like, but if my car is clean every single day, right? It was like, that was my own pride. Like, my car was immaculate. There was never junk food in my car. It was always like this pristine. I think I probably washed my car like 4 times a week. You know what I mean? And it was interesting because I would drive around and see people who had like a Ferrari or whatever. It could just be a nice, like a nice car, but they had a nice car and it was dirty. And I was like, how do you have this? Like, how do you have this brand new Mercedes that you probably shelled out $1 million? I wish I could afford that, but your standard for care for it is just in the toilet. And I think that's the difference, right? Is like, my expectation of that, and again, comparison of that too, was like, oh, if you have that money, you'd obviously take care of your car. Why would you not? And again, you're starting to compare yourself to others, and you put this in a really interesting spot. So what's your story on that? And by the way, shout out to Iraq today. We got a viewer who's on from Iraq hanging out with us. I think that's pretty solid. So I don't know how to say this name. I'm going to probably butcher it, but Dargum, dude, thanks for being on the show today and hanging out with us all the way from Iraq. So shout out, brother man. Thanks for being on. Jesse, so what else? You said you had another story on this one, yeah?
Yeah, so I think this is a really good indicator on entrepreneurs. So,
please,
we love how things go fast. So I mentioned that I'm in a season of family. I have 2 kids under 2, and a couple months
lots
ago,
of diapers. Send diapers to Jesse at jesseecker.com.
And so one week, me and my wife say, wow, our son's name, Jordan, he's our older. Jordan's made so much progress this week. It's amazing, like how much progress he's made. And then, and we were talking about this, and then I had this light bulb moment, and I said, it's not this week he made progress. It's the last 18 months, every single day he's made progress. Yes. And that consistent movement of working towards something has gotten the result of the progress we're seeing right now. Totally. And I thought that was so freaking powerful to understand, because entrepreneurs are like, this week, I'm not seeing the thing that I want, but I've tried for the week. And it's not the week. Right. It's the consistency of you showing up and doing the things that you need to do, not for the day, not for the week, not for the year, but for the time you're in your business. That's where the fruits start to come, right? Mm-hmm. And so that's the thing, is like, most people are so judgmental on the methods and strategies they use in the moment. So like, we teach people how to do online events, and some people use multi-day events, which could be known as like a challenge. Sometimes it's full day events, whatever it is. And so someone will do an event once and they're like, it didn't work. It's like, okay, good job. I get that the result wasn't there, right? But like, what do we do to get that result? But really, that's not the case. So like, when I think about like my dad, who was in the event business, his first event had 12 people there, and they bribed people with lunch to come. And that's where they came. And so that was his first event. Then they told people. And then by the end of the year, he had, 30, 40 people. By the next year, he had 500 people, right? Look at every single thing. It's the consistency of doing the same thing over and over and over again to nail the process, to nail it in, to really get the result that you really want. And you're looking, when you see someone get a good result, it's because they freaking have mastered the process that they're doing, right? And if you could do that shorter, great. But most people, they can't, and it takes time. Or the process is shortened with them because, like, again, my process was already 10 years of that process.
Right.
Now I'm using that process for a year. And so you might be like, wow, Jesse might do $1 million in 1 year. It's like, no, I did $1 million in a year because I've been doing business for almost 20
Right.
years. Right.
Yeah. Well, and that goes back to comparison, right? I had a friend of mine. I mean, a mutual friend of ours. We were just chatting about him too. Rob Nixon,
Oh, yeah.
buddy of ours, and like he had his first year. I think he was like in 6 months he had done $2 million in revenue, and like to your point, but he was running a company that was doing like whatever $30 million for the previous 10. So it's like it's unfair to compare yourself to somebody who has a different level of practice than you did prior to getting to where you are. So I think all said and done here, Jesse. I think there's a lot of things here. Watch out for the comparison, right? Watch out for comparing yourself to what the preparation is. Make sure, I love what Brody said, right? Is like the standards part of that is just, can you uphold the standard until you achieve the result? The other thing is being aware of how you set goals. Set the goals so that you can have something, but then figure out what you need, who you need to be and what you need to do. I think those are all super solid. And Jesse, you mentioned this, and I don't know how many of you guys do online live events. But if you do events, do me a favor and comment events. You guys know I do events. Jesse does events. We have a lot of friends who do events. But if you do events, comment events. And Jesse, do you have a resource I think that you can give away, right? That's a really cool tool for people who do online events that want to get better at them. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. So
what is that? So we can drop that out. I want to make sure I get that out for people.
Yeah, it's buildyourbrandonline.com/guide. And it's a guide to show us the 4 sections that are needed to really have a breakthrough event. And a breakthrough event is really what we call a conversion event, where you can use the approach of one to many, where you are the presenter, you're the authority, you're the expert in the space. You do what you love, you do what you're best at, you teach, what you're doing, and then you move people to an offer to then upgrade with you in what you're doing. So why I love events is because you can do one event a month or even one every other month and have exceptionally better results than doing something every single day for a sale, right?
That's awesome.
And so it's shortening the time, but also giving you the life that most business owners want. So the principles of business are universal, right? We have universal principles that we do. But in business, we choose what strategies and tactics we use those principles with. And many people use strategies and tactics that they don't want to because they think that's the only way. But the truth is, everything that you see works. It's not what you're doing, it's how you're doing it that makes the biggest difference, right? Yeah. So the big difference is, what do you want in your business and how do you want to approach it? For me, like, I prefer to sell only a couple times of the month and then fulfill to the highest level on the other side, but also get the experience of, not being on the phone all the time or hiring a big sales team, something like that.
Love it. Dude, this has been super good, Jesse. It's been really powerful. I love that last piece you said. That was worth all the money to me, was what you just said about everything. You said everything works. It's just how you're doing it that may not work. That was really gold for me. Producer Bob, can you put up the link down here? Because I know there's another link that is actually tied to Beautiful Minds too, buildyourbrandonline.com. And if you do /Beautiful Minds, it'll track the information from us and then make sure that Jesse knows that all came from our crew. Some special stuff for you. You can download that link right there online. So thank you, Jesse, for giving us that resource. If you do events online, dude, you gotta know Jesse. Jesse's been doing massive events for years and years. You should probably know this guy. And again, if you haven't seen any of his stuff yet, you now are homies with Jesse. And Jesse, I'm just super grateful for you, bro. I really am. I'm really serious. I'm going to take you snowboarding this year. If your wife will watch The Little People. And by the way, my kids started snowboarding when they were 18 months. So I think it's time. What? I think it's time for your kids to snowboard. I'll send you the video, dog, so you can see my kids snowboarding 18 months. Anyway, you guys, thank you for being on today. Thanks for hanging out on Beautiful Minds. Jesse, as always, a pleasure. Thanks for dropping out what you do. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much for having me. Appreciate you all watching. I appreciate your attention and your commitment to learning and growing. And Jason, you're the man. Appreciate it.
Dude, thanks so much. Have a great week, guys. See ya. Thanks for joining us on today's show. If you want to get access to our 7-day Beautiful Minds Challenge, you can either comment below and just say 7-day, and I'll shoot you the information so you can get immediate access to that, or find me on any social media and just send me the message 7-day, and I'll make sure I get that out to you right away. And if you really enjoyed today's show, it would do me a huge favor if you went online, whether it was Spotify, Pandora, or iTunes, or any sort of podcast platform that you can find us on, and search for The Beautiful Minds Show, subscribe to our channel, and then make sure you give us a rating. Every time you give us a rating, it helps us get more eyeballs on our show and help more people have a more beautiful mind. Thanks again for joining us.